Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Now, Logan will be here in a minute. A lot of technical issues going on because the internet isn't that good at the minute, but we should make it through, and Logan will join in due time. But it's been a very interesting week to say the least, and that meme of that escalated quickly. That's this past week. You go from Xbox's summer showcase and how good that week was in general to this past few days where it's been an absolute, think of a word I can say on the channel and be fine, hellscape. We'll just say hellscape. But other than that, I'm good. I may have mentioned last week, I may have broken my foot. I don't know what a broken bone feels like, but it's feeling better. So whatever I did to it, I may have not broken, which is good. But yeah, what a week. And I will say this before we get into all the game and stuff and what we've been playing. There's been some changes in the UK that will be going on for the next several months, which I'll talk about briefly. And that's the whole censorship thing, and people having to use identification to sign in online. We've seen this come into effect with Xbox and PlayStation, where I think it's July it all starts, where you have to sign in with an ID or face scan or something to use your Xbox online features or your PlayStation online features, and they'll have to do the same on Nintendo as well. A lot of things like that are happening in the UK at the minute and around the world, such as like Europe and Australia. None of us want this. It's just it's an annoying thing that's happening. It's honestly intrusion on people's privacy. I don't agree with it. There's no positive or any good sentiment behind it whatsoever. But it is what it is, and hopefully, things will change, and we won't need any of this stuff online anymore. Because honestly, it's just control at the end of the day, and none of us want that. Now, it's been an interesting week, and normally we have anywhere between 12 to, let's say, 22 topics every week. This week we have around 15. Should be a fun one. And yeah, we actually do have some good news this week outside of what you've seen online. The problem with covering gaming and like a podcast on YouTube or whatever, the bad news outweighs the good every single time, which is unfortunate. And unfortunately, the negative news stories just get more clicks. So you will see people, making clickbait thumbnails, making clickbait videos where they're pulling a stupid face and holding the controller up in a thumbnail, making garbage clickbait. It happens. People like that stuff. But, what's that saying? Flies are attracted to a certain substance, that comes out of horses. And you say on a road sometimes. That's that kind of content. Anyway, now what have I been playing this week? Actually, before I continue, I'd say if Logan's here. Yeah, just more technical issues. He'll join when he can. But this week, I've been playing a bunch of different games. And normally, I try and keep my the games I've been playing list very short because, it takes me a long time to finish all these open world games. But I've been playing a couple. So I've been playing 007 First Light. That game is phenomenal. For people that haven't played it, you really have to. It's in the game of the year running for me. And I'm actually shocked more people aren't talking about it. It's sold, I think, over 2.7 million copies in its first week or something like that, which is great to see for a brand new Bond game because I love the James Bond franchise, and unfortunately, if you're a Bond fan, we don't get video games that often, which is a shame. But this game's incredible. The main character, the guy that plays James Bond, does an incredible job. They have a really interesting story that feels like they've taken elements from a few different Bond movies and put them together, which is really cool. It doesn't have the fantastical things that you see in some of the Pierce Brosnan movies, such as GoldenEye or any of that stuff. Like it's a more realistic take on James Bond, which is really cool. It leans more towards the Daniel Craig style of storytelling, and I actually quite like that. There is some funny stuff in there as well, but I think people will love this game. It's got Splinter Cell style elements in there as well. And honestly, it is a really good combination of Splinter Cell, Hitman, and Uncharted. And it just works. And IO Interactive have knocked it out of the park. hopefully they can come up with some sort of publishing deal with Amazon Games, because look, Bond games are going to be hot, and a bunch of studios are wanting to make them, from what I can hear. And from what we know right now, IO Interactive, they want to make a sequel. It's selling well. It's going to sell great for the rest of the year. I can imagine this game selling way more at Christmas, and people are going to love this game. It does have an expansion coming later on, which is cool. It's also going to get things like a photo mode, new cosmetics and all that type of thing. IO Interactive, they support their games for a long time. Hitman still gets, content, which is really cool. So if you like single player games that gets updates for a long time, those are a developer to support. They don't litter their games with intrusive microtransactions. There are things you can buy, but it's nothing bad. And to me, we don't get linear third person shooters that often. So for them to come out, knock it out of the park, you have big action set pieces. By the way, for anyone watching, there's no spoilers during the gameplay on the show, but there's a set piece that involves a crane where you're chasing someone, and I just thought you don't get games like this that often now, where it feels like we used to get games like this all the time. So to have a linear third person shooter with big set pieces, some that involve planes, cars, I think boats are in some of the future chapters because I'm only in chapter 6 now. But this game is gorgeous as well. Absolutely stunning. The combat is really cool. It's kind of like Splinter Cell Conviction. There's a lot of inspiration from Splinter Cell in this game. But Splinter Cell Conviction, it has almost the same one-to-one combat, which I like. You can interact with different things in the environment. So if you're standing next to a big flat screen TV, you can throw them into the TV and it'll crack. If you're near let's say a cup or a mug or something, you can throw that at them and knock them out, or knock the gun out of their hands. And then you can use your gadgets during combat. So if they lift a rifle at you, you can use your watch to laser it out of their hands, basically, which is so cool. It actually makes you feel like James Bond, and I absolutely love that. And to me, and I don't know if this is a bit of a reach, maybe it's too soon, but I think so far it might actually be the best James Bond game ever made. And I was a huge fan of Nightfire on the GameCube. So yeah, they knocked it out of the park. If people have been looking forward to a high quality third person cinematic game, this is it. People need to buy this in droves, and hopefully we'll see multiple sequels of this. And honestly, I would actually be okay with that actor playing Bond in a full-on live-action movie, because he's just so good. Anyway, I've also been playing Crimson Desert. That game is phenomenal. I mean, I can't say enough good things about that. Apparently, I have glazed this game too much. Screw it. I'm going to continue to glaze this game because it's phenomenal. Just the amount of gameplay mechanics in the game, the developers are supporting the game, so good. Constant updates, improving things, putting things in the game people want.
Hey, can you hear me, man?
Oh, there you are. How you doing, Logan? Oh, he's cutting in and out. Yeah. Just join when you can. There's lots of different issues going on. Actually, before he gets back on, I'll continue to talk about Crimson Desert. Let's see if there's any issues going online, because over the past couple of days, Discord has had some problems. So it's probably something like that. But we'll get it sorted and he'll join when he can. Yeah, Discord has been having some issues. Yeah. Anyway, but Crimson Desert, it's been fantastic. And to have such a big open world game like this that feels alive throughout the whole game is incredible. I always compare it to Red Dead Redemption 2, which I think is it's so high praise. And don't get me wrong, right? Red Dead Redemption 2, in my opinion, is one of the most polished looking games of all time. Is this game that polished? No. Nowhere near. However, the game is still amazing. You have... Oh, here we go. We have Logan back. Logan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Sorry about that. There's been a lot of construction around here, and for some reason, somebody nicked the internet for a bit.
It's all right. It happens. I mean, look, I went a week without internet. I think it was a year ago, because someone outside messed with one of the phone lines.
I know, they're so finicky.
Yeah. By the way, we can send people to the moon. We're going to send people to Mars. but for some reason we can't get printers to work, and internet drops all the time.
I know it's crazy. It's a first world problem,
Yeah,
but
oh yeah.
it is really annoying.
But
Um,
I've just been talking about what I've been playing. Before I get into Rebirth in a minute, Logan, how are you? And what have you been playing?
I'm doing all right. I have had a lot of stuff going on
Yeah.
outside of gaming and stuff, but things are going better now, and
Oh, good, good.
looking forward to that resolving. And then as far as gaming and stuff, just Pragmata and Powerwash Sim 2. I played a little bit of Xeno Crisis the other day.
Nice.
Really fun on the ROG Ally X. It's like a twin stick shooter type, almost like Metal Slug kind of game. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, been looking forward to playing some newly released stuff. I'm debating which one I want to jump into first. Like I'm choosing a Final Fantasy, and here, I'll let you help me choose. Should I go 16 first, or should I jump back and start over with 7 again?
Ooh, 7. Definitely 7.
7?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh, we'll look at 7 then. Um, but yeah, I haven't played a lot lately, but I've enjoyed what I've played, and there's certainly a lot to talk about today. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have a bunch of topics to go over, and I was saying before you joined that we have some good news this week, but unfortunately, like the good news just gets like uh drowned out by all the bad news, which is a shame because
Yeah, it's a footnote.
yeah,
Yeah.
and bad news just gets more clicks. That's just the unfortunate truth of it. Which is why you see so many thumbnails of people pulling cringe faces. I will not mention names, but people know what I'm talking about. But yeah, we've got good stuff to talk about then. Obviously, look, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, the studio thing. Um, but yeah, I'll get into the last game I've been playing before we get into all the topics. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now we're going to call this segment, Jamie Glazer's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for 5 minutes. I'll keep it brief though. It's incredible. It's funny. I never actually gave 7 Remake a full-on rating because I thought, look, Rebirth doesn't come out that much longer after, so I'll play that, then I'll make up my mind. Because I've been thinking, like, how can Rebirth be better than Remake? And honestly, I've never been able to figure it out because like I've seen people say like, hey, I prefer the remake and I adore that game, and some people have told me that Rebirth is even better. So to me, I've been wondering how are you better than that game? So anyway, I'm on to chapter 4 now, and I can kind of really see where people are going with the whole "it's better" thing. Do I think it's better so far? No, but if I'm continuing to like it as much as I am, yeah. It's just they expand on so many different gameplay mechanics. Combat's slightly adjusted in different ways. The way you level up your character is completely different, which I kind of like and dislike at the same time. I got so used to the leveling up system in the first one, but I'll get used to it. There's more. It looks like there's more enemy types in Rebirth as well. I'm just overall enjoying the game. It's incredible and it's stunning. The graphics are incredible. Do you know what's funny, right? When Revelation was announced last week during the Summer Games Fest show, a lot of people got super excited, seeing this brand new trailer. But I actually saw some complaints about the graphics. And all I could think was like, why are people complaining about the graphics? This looks gorgeous. And it turns out people are complaining that the graphics jump isn't huge because these developers, they even came out and said how they've been able to make 3 games in 7 years. It's because they have the character models from the first game, and the reusing certain areas in the third game. And it's like, I have no problem with developers reusing assets at all. So if they can
Always
make
thought
game,
that was a really tired narrative anyway
yeah,
for people.
and like to me, Like, I'm okay with it. So if these developers want to reuse character models, things like, buildings, certain areas and stuff, I don't care. I really don't care. As long as you make a really good game, I don't care. And the character models in 7 Remake look incredible. I think Cloud may be one of the most detailed character models in gaming ever. Same with Aerith, really. Like, just the detail on her jacket alone is more than most games. But I saw this complaining about graphics and all kinds of things. Like, these games are gorgeous. They play incredible. The in-game cutscenes are some of the best ever made. Yes, I'm glazing the hell out of these games. And by the way, for people that aren't into JRPGs, these are probably the best ones to get into. The combat is super fast. It's sleek, easy to understand. The plot of Final Fantasy VII is pretty straightforward, but still great. But yeah, just that the complaints about the graphics threw me off. And for my friend that I play Call of Duty with, like, he has every piece of hardware you can imagine, right? He has a fancy PC with like a 4090 or like something fancy in it. He has a PlayStation 5 Pro. He has an Xbox Series X, an S, a Switch, and a Switch 2, and I think he has two VR headsets. Oh, and he has a ROG, right? So he has everything, right? And he's always been very much into like graphics, so like all this talk of ray tracing on Helix and stuff, and path tracing's been very exciting to him. And even he said when we were talking the other day playing COD, he was like, I don't mind if developers lower the graphics a bit if we just get games more often, and if these games are good. What we've been talking about for the longest time. And like someone that absolutely adores fancy graphics, can't wait for the next Cyberpunk game, is okay if games don't look any better, and I think that's because people are. I think a lot of people are just fed up with how long these games are getting, they're taking to make, which is why when I see something like Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 or Revelation, they're talking about using the same assets, using the same engine, not having to make everything from scratch again. And I'm like, I am completely okay with that. I really am. Like, Logan, what's your take on that? Because I know this is the what I've been playing segment, but it kind of goes into what we've been talking about. Like, if they can get games out faster by using the same engine, using the same character models and assets across certain areas, like, I'm perfectly fine with that. As long as it's a new game, it's good, and that's all I really ask for at the end of the day.
Yeah, like I see zero reason to whine and moan about that. Like, you know, you think they really were swapping out all the character models all the time in the Mass Effect trilogy and the Gears of War trilogy. Like, yes, there were some updates and little tweaks here and there, but a large amount of the stuff was reused.
Yeah.
And like all the we go back to seventh gen all the time because one, it was awesome and it was like the best of times, but also because we actually got trilogies, all sagas, all these things in a good, reasonable amount of time. Like, they were cranking these suckers out fast. And, like, good quality games, too. Day one, you put in the disc, you play the game. There might be a little update, maybe, but most part, you got what you wanted immediately. And it wasn't a 7 year wait for a sequel on the next gen of consoles before you got it. You'd wait maybe 2, 3 years, like a Star Wars movie back in the day. Used to be, episode 4, 3 years later, 5, 3 years later, 6, or 1, 2, 3, like that.
Yeah.
And it made sense. There was a cadence you could expect and a quality you could expect. Now it's just a mess. Like, I mean, you could sum up all the topics today with just that phrase. It's a mess. I mean, basically, but it I've said it before and you've said it before. Like, some people might cringe at the notion, but I would be 60 visuals or maybe slightly a little bit above that, maybe Xbox One, PS4 era visuals if we capped out at that, if we got them quicker and got them more reliably and a steady cadence of content and some innovation in other areas. Like at some point, you get into diminishing returns where you're into Sweatgate in the basketball games, and you're like, well, see how the sweat looks on this guy's face on this version versus in this version, you can make out this, or their hair is slightly this or that. I'm like, dude, yeah, I mean that's a thing you can notice, but at the end of the day, nobody's buying the games for the sweat pixels or the hair. Like they want the game itself, and just they just take too daggum long to make.
Yeah. I saw this clip of this person. I won't mention the name because I don't want them to get any flack for it. But this person, I was looking at the character model of this game, and this character model looked like lots of detail, really impressive. Something from this generation that looks really good. And this person like zoomed in onto this character's nose and said, "Oh, you could see some like polygons and like the round part of the front of the nose." And all I could think was like, "You're never really gonna zoom in while playing." like, like people's standards right now are so high for video games. That's why games are taking so long to make. We're going to be talking about this later on with the whole studio thing. But like people are wanting like 4K, 60 FPS, ray tracing, super realistic graphics all the time, right? And I think that's like it's one of the reasons why I think we're heading towards a crash, which I 100% think is going to happen. I still think it's going to happen, and yeah, things aren't looking good. But anyway, that's what I've been. That's what I've been playing. I've also been playing a little bit of Arc Raiders, but that game is actually really annoying me at the minute. The developers, by the way, Laura, I want your impression of this. So it came out today that the next map for Arc Raiders, bear in mind we got one in April, early April. The next map comes out in October.
Yeah, it's a sick joke, my friend.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm finding less and less reasons to play. 5 to 6 months in between maps is a joke. It's
I
it's only
mean, talk about not a live service game. That's a life support game.
yeah. Like, wouldn't you think that if hey, you have 14 million people buy your game, you basically have no competition on console because on PC you have tons of different extraction games. On console you have Marathon, which isn't doing too hot unfortunately, but like Arc Raiders has zero competition. Until October, by the way, that's when Call of Duty's extraction mode comes out, and it looks amazing. Um, yeah, Arc Raiders, they screwed. They're not paying attention to the fans. They only catering to streamers. It's crystal clear. They only catering to the big streamers that do the PvP stuff. And yeah, October for the next map. I think I might actually delete the game soon. I'm honestly getting sick and tired of it. They're not dealing with any of the problems the main public are actually dealing with when it comes to this game. Yeah, just catering to streamers, which is, hey, they have to make things good for them as well. But when you have 14 million players buy your game and you've had a 50% drop off in a month, there's a problem. There's a big problem there. Anyway,
That
let's.
was one of the issues Halo dealt with, among its litany of issues, is they started catering too much to the MLG and the streamer people instead of just the norms who want to just play a few matches with their friends. Like that was a big issue in the Halo community for a long time.
Yeah, considering I don't do multiplayer, what was the map situation? Obviously, it's a different kind of game, but like, what was the map situation like with Halo Infinite? Like, how often were maps coming out or anything like that?
It was a absolute joke for a long time. Like it came out and there was a decent amount of content at start and people were happy, except they had cut off split screen and some other stuff that we don't have to go into right now. But it 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 was a good experience overall, but then they hit this thing where it was like wandering 40 years in the desert till you got more maps and more modes, like even simple modes that were bare minimum standard in the trilogy and other Halo games. It took them aeons to come out. And by the time they came out, people had moved on because it's like, buddy, like the last train out of town's already left. Like it was just bad. It was among the many issues the Halo franchise has had in management. Um, Content cadence with Infinite was high among them. Just a sick joke. Yes.
Yeah, I really hope that, like, look, I've seen a lot of these streamers, they do a lot for these multiplayer games, but man, like, they can't keep catering to these MLG, sweat players, like, hell, look at Fortnite, right? As much as we give Fortnite crap for how they basically ruined the industry with how battle passes work and microtransactions, like, they don't cater to the sweats at all. It has casual modes, it has pro style modes. They've even had full on concerts in the game. With Ariana Grande and Metallica. So uh, different kind of devs, but my god, just playing Arc Raiders, it's depressing. It really is. There's just so much potential for that universe as well. They could have came out with a single player campaign, charged an extra $20 or something for it, because Arc Raiders players would have bought it. They have such an interesting universe there, and they're just doing nothing with it. And by the way, all quests, because there are missions in the game you can do, all missions require you to walk to a location, press X, and that's it. That's the variety in that game. So nobody does the missions anymore because they're boring. And hopefully things change. I hope they actually pay attention to the feedback of the fans because, what's happening right now isn't working. And if you have someone like me that was posting about Arc Raiders every day for like 3 months, I don't post about it online at all anymore, which is a shame. By the way, another reason why I stopped posting Arc Raiders clips on Twitter is because there was a guy who was clearly going on online and taking everyone's interesting clips and posting them on his own account and not giving anyone credit. This person was, called out a bunch of times, and like this person was making money off our clips. And then he put out a video saying, hey, thanks guys, thanks for the support and all that stuff. Putting out the content, it's greatly appreciated. It's like, it's our content. You're posting our clips. Bear in mind, it was just people like me and like the Arc Raiders community posting free clips on Twitter for people to watch, and this person was monetizing them. Right? Our clips. Bloody hell. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Okay, so before we get into the major topics, I'll talk about this quickly. So Sony kind of really messed up the Destiny situation, which is something I've noticed a bunch of podcasts aren't talking about at the minute. So Destiny, Bungie's cutting support, and the Destiny fandom have rallied up to like, hey, we want to send a message to Sony, and we want to tell them like, hey, there's still people that play this game in droves. We want Destiny 3. And anyway, it turns out that it works, kind of. They all signed up to play Destiny 2 on, I believe, the 9th of July. And it had over, I think, 180,000 concurrent players on Steam, which is huge. Because I think beforehand it was 18,000. So it had such a huge jump, right? The fan base rallied up for the franchise. And they were telling right now, go onto social media, go to any single Sony post. Every single one of the comments is just people asking for Destiny 3. And it looks like Sony's given all resources to Marathon, which hasn't set the world on fire, let's be honest. And, it hasn't gave Arc Raiders the competition it needs. And the fan base, they spoke with their wallets, right? They're going to, put more money into Destiny, clearly. Apparently the other day there was like over 3 million players concurrently across all platforms, which is crazy for a game that came out in I think 2017. So like, hey, I hope this works. Hopefully Sony pays attention to it, because like if this doesn't work, I think Marathon won't have that much support going forward, and I'm actually worried about the future of Bungie. because they've been one of the best developers in the world when it comes to first-person shooters for decades now, and to see them possibly leave the industry or get shut down or whatever, like nobody wants to see that. Um, but anyway, if you want Destiny 3, just continue the support for the game, and hopefully Sony will see that, hey, people still like Destiny, and we'll get a third one, hopefully. Now, we have a bunch of different topics here, and let's get into this first. So, we'll get the really small, bad stuff out of the way first when it comes to third parties. So, Lunar Abyss, brand new first-person shooter. It came out around 2 weeks ago. The developers have already had to shut down the studio, basically. All developers have been laid off, and the game came out about 2 weeks ago, which is such a sad thing to see because the end of May was really packed with video games. There was not a lot of marketing for Lunar Abyss, and it's a sci-fi first-person shooter. It's kind of in the style of like Doom Eternal or the Dark Ages. The game had next to no coverage online, and nobody was talking about it. And it came out around about the same time as James Bond 007 First Light. Ouch. Because like that game went viral, 007. Everyone was playing it. You had a new Bond game that everyone loved, and you have this first-person shooter that comes out around about the same time. Nobody paid attention to it whatsoever, it's such a shame. Because Lunar Abyss looked really cool. I was offered a review key, but I couldn't cover it because of the lack of free time. But the game looks great. Logan, did you see the story at all?
No, I hadn't seen the story, but the game actually looked really cool to me and was one
Yeah.
I was interested in playing. So it's a big bummer that they've already gotten axed. I mean, seems to be a trend lately, but yeah, just a big bummer. I wish them the best, and I hate it when cool teams and cool concepts get overlooked, and then it's just like, well, it's just another casualty at this point.
Yeah. I think that a lot of developers are trying to get their games out in the next couple of months to avoid GTA, which I've rolled my eyes at because I have to mention it every time. I do hope we see some developers realize that, look, GTA comes out, November 19th? Let me tell you right now, that isn't going to be the only game I play in November, right? I'll play it.
Godzilla, baby, let's go.
Yeah, Godzilla. I love how ballsy they've been, like everyone else, terrified. Godzilla remaster, no problem. But I just wish more developers just had the balls to actually do something about it, right? GTA, it's going to sell great regardless, but like, I don't know, maybe am I in my own little bubble or something? Because like, Grand Theft Auto is going to come out. I'm not going to play the online mode because of what I've said in the past. So like to me, it's going to be a 30-hour game, and then I have to wait another 14 years for GTA 7. Like, so I'm not going to just play it just one game in November. That's lunacy. I'm probably gonna have to replay like Mass Effect or something, which will be nice. But I think that all these developers just being terrified, so they're lumping all these games together. September is ridiculous. October's ridiculous. We're now beginning to get December release dates as well. But the funny thing about December is all games in December come out in the first 2 weeks because nobody wants to put out a game a few days before Christmas. And nobody puts a game out in between Christmas and New Year. So yeah, I think it's just terrible, man. These developers, they need to find better slots for their games, spread these games out a bit more. Like, Logan, could you remember about a decade ago where games never came out in the summer?
Yeah, I remember it was almost always November
Yeah.
was like the big push because my birthday is late November, and I always remembered like, hey, I know what I'm getting for birthday, and like the latest games and stuff. And it was always holiday push began in November, late October. And the summer was generally saved for the movies. Like you'd go see the blockbuster films at the theater and you'd play your games throughout the rest of the year. And that was kind of just how it went. But yeah, it is weird how they schedule things now. And honestly, more I would recommend some of these studios, face face the boogeyman.
Yeah.
Put a game in November. Like it's not just ballsy, it might be necessary and smarter because everybody knows GTA's there. It's easy to avoid the 1,000 pound gorilla that's, down the road. If it's big, it's loud, you know when it's coming, you can avoid it. Like just versus you throw out your game in a crowded month or two span where there's a million other things flooding it and it gets lost in the pile. It becomes a bargain bin. Like you might have an S tier game that somehow sifts to the bottom of a Walmart clearance bin kind of thing because you released it during when everybody else was being a wuss and released all their games in a different time, and it royally screws your game over more than having the audacity to release in the same month as GTA. Like at some point you got to be smarter than that.
Yeah. I mean, the release date thing, it messes up a lot of these games. I think the best example for a release date messing up a game is probably Titanfall 2.
Mhm.
Titanfall 2 came out. So there was a 3 week period where Battlefield came out, and then 2 weeks later, Call of Duty came out. And for some reason, EA decided to launch Titanfall 2 in between those two games. It had no chance. It really, and like really think about it. Like Titanfall 1 had this is just on Xbox One, PC, and 360. That game sold over 11 million copies. Right, it was like the hottest new multiplayer game on Xbox One. Amazing game. I will never stop praising that game because it was just so good. But like the sequel had a campaign. It should have sold more, and it barely charted because of it. Its launch time was so bad. You know, Battlefield had this huge hype going in that year. I think that was Battlefield World War One or Battlefield One. Um, and you know they had a lot of hype, and then Call of Duty that year had a lot of hype. But like yeah, Titanfall 2 coming out in between, it basically ended the franchise, and now all we get is Apex Legends, and let's just say I'm not a fan. Just to keep this show PG, I'm not a fan of that game at all and what it did to that franchise. Um, but yeah, Lunar Abyss, they suffered badly because of the whole releasing the game. I think it was like 2 days before Bond. Terrible. And the other bit of bad third party news is that Don't Nod, the developers of the Life of Strange games, and I think they also made Vampire, which is a really cool third person action RPG where, shocker, you play as a vampire. Um, that game was good, really good, by the way. Highly recommend it. They have enough money to last the studio till November. So they might be shutting doors because they don't have a new one coming out anytime soon. And, the last game didn't sell that well. And it looks like, yeah, they've been around for a very long time. And we may not wait. Like, Logan, didn't they make Remember Me?
Yes, they did. They have made a bunch of really good games that for some reason sold piss poorly.
Yep.
Like they made Remember Me, they made Vampire, they made Life is Strange, the first one, which was incredible. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
one did some hotcakes, but they made that. They did Tell Me Why. Um and then I think Lost Eidolons, like I think was their one of the more recent ones, or Lost Echoes or something like that.
Yep.
It's in Game Pass. It's another narrative based game, kind of like Life is Strange. And then they also did uh it was a recent game with like it had like a husband and wife or lovers or something RPG with ghosts and like
Oh, yeah, I
swords
remember
and
that. Was it
um,
set in the UK?
yes, I believe
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I played that. Yep.
That one, which is really good as well, even though I can't remember the name right now. And yeah, like I love that studio. Like If it wasn't for some things that just happened this week, I would say, hey, Microsoft should
Yeah.
pick them up. But maybe not. Somebody should though, because that's a talented studio and they deserve to live. I I will always stand them. I like them and Remedy. Kind of feel like kindred spirits to me.
I was trying to think of a game that came out recently, which I did actually play, and she's no in chat reminded me, Aphelion.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that game. I think it was like around 10 hours long. Logan, did you play Aphelion yet?
I'm trying to remember what is it about.
It's the sci-fi game set at the edge of the solar system.
Oh no, I have not. It's in my backlog though.
Right, really cool game, right? And basically, the game's split up into two different parts. You have one that's sort of like, I'm not going to call it stealth. It is more like set pieces, and the other half is built around climbing, kind of, and it just works. It's a really fun game. But yeah, thinking about it now, that'll have been the game that tanked them, because that game, it had no marketing whatsoever. That seems to be the thing with a lot of Don't Nod games. They have a cool premise for a game, and there's no marketing whatsoever. And if I remember correctly, that came out around about the same time as Crimson Desert. So yeah, not good timing. Hopefully they can like secure more funding because they're a super talented studio. But like this industry, man, uh, this industry's cooked. There's so many like studios shutting down. Um, it's kind of scary, really. Back when we were, I'll just go back to the seventh gen because that's the generation I love the most. Like, you didn't have big AAA games releasing all the time, not really. Yeah, it felt like we had more hits. Indie games, there were a lot fewer of them. Um, and like, I think a big problem this generation is that there's too many games. There's thousands of games on the store. I think I saw a statistic last year. I think it was somewhere like 18,000 games were released on Steam last year. It was like some absurd number. And it's like, how many of these games actually make money? How do people notice them? And I think that's one of the reasons why I used to like, Xbox Summer Arcade, where they'd take a couple of games that they partnered with and they'd highlight them and then market them for like a month or so. I think there needs to be more programs like that because a lot of games like they come out, they fail. Like I said, Luna Abyss's doors are gonna basically close. Like the industry's in a scary place, and we're going to talk about the Xbox thing in a bit. But my God, there was a game that came out on, I think it was the Xbox. Yeah, it was the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, where you played as a detective, right? And the game it's basically a cross between Ghost and a detective story, right? Where you try and solve these.
Detective.
Sorry, say that
Something
again.
like that. Was it like Murdered Soul Detective
That's
or
it.
something like that?
Murdered Soul Suspect.
Okay, yeah, there we
Right.
go.
The game came out on a Tuesday, and the studio closed on the Friday.
Bad gum. They didn't. The body wasn't even cold.
Yeah. And that was a really cool game. People have never heard of it. It was, I think it was Games with Gold. So worth checking to see if they have it because like super interesting game. And yeah, and that was I think 2015. So this is a problem that's been going on for a very long time. I really wish like something's got to change really. Again, we'll talk about that later in the show. It's scary what's going on right now. You play a game today that you maybe like, and that studio will shut down a week later. Which is crazy. Like the studios, I'll use Hollywood as an example. So like, we all know that Hollywood isn't doing that good at the minute when it comes to their big blockbusters. Like a lot of films come out, most of them don't even make money now, right? Like you have a few films that come out this year that I could say are guaranteed to make money, right? Avengers, Dune, Spider-Man, right? Big franchise movies. But like everything else is like doing terrible. You have that new He-Man movie, right, which I should be seeing soon. That's doing terrible at the box office. That was a super expensive film to make. I think it looks great. But like none of these movies are making money. But the thing about Hollywood is, right, they have to continue making these movies, whether they have a couple of duds or not, because that they need to pay for all the actors and stuff. They have all the Screen Actors Guild and all this crap. I can't remember the name. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but basically,
SGA.
yeah,
Yeah.
like Hollywood, they have to continue to make movies. That's just gonna happen, right? You see Disclosure Day come out, right? Only recently had a bunch of marketing. Is that gonna do well? I'm guessing no. However, we're still gonna see more Steven Spielberg movies in the future. Basically, the only films that are guaranteed now to make money are big blockbuster franchises such as Avengers and Dune, and also small horror films that cost like $10 million to make. Like that Backrooms thing, I think that cost like $10 million, and it's made an absurd amount of money already. What's that film that just came out recently? The horror film where the meme of that woman went viral.
Oh, Obsession
Right.
did really, really well.
Yeah, Obsession cost like 2 shots of vodka and a thimble, right, to make, and that film's made like $300 million, right? And like those are basically the two only different kinds of films that are making money. But with video games, you have so many different studios making these games, and they have to make money to keep the doors open. And yeah, these games cost more to make than movies. So like the movie and the film industry, two completely different beasts. You have do you know War Machine that came out a couple of months ago on Netflix, which I dub as it's Metal Gear Solid Light.
It was a fun movie. I enjoyed it.
Not gonna lie, I get pulled apart on Twitter for my opinions on movies. Shocker to no one. I loved that film.
Oh, it was so fun. I watched that with my cousin the other day. It was pretty good.
They took the plot of Predator and just put in a Metal Gear. Like that's all that film is, and it's getting a sequel. Now, for people that haven't watched it yet, let me tell you where that film's going. You want to see the sequel. But do you know what? Netflix, they don't make any money on these films. Only what they get with subscriptions. Those studios are safe. Games aren't like that. And I've seen so many games come out this year that they've just done terrible. Because nobody's paying attention to them, and there's a big problem in the game industry at the minute where there's two types of games that actually do well. You have small indie games that pop off that go viral online, such as things like, Among Us and Vampire Survivors. These games cost next to nothing to make, and they sold millions upon millions because of just how viral they are. And look, Vampire Survivors is an addictive game. It costs next to nothing. And all you do in that game is move a character. That's all you do. And that game made bank. And the other type of game is games that also go viral because of how big and good they are, such as, an Ark Raiders or a Call of Duty or, a Grand Theft Auto, right? Everything in between, nobody pays attention to them. AA games come out all the time and they fail, right? Which is one of the reasons why I like to highlight them so much, because I think AA is probably the most interesting space. Like the rest of the industry's cooked, and we're going to hear about more studios closing down that aren't Microsoft or Sony. Nintendo seems to be safe, but I think I figured out why. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame. So we have the first super chat of the day by Nick W. Thank you very much for the $4.99. He says Gears of War budget was $400 million. $4 million. I can't speak today. $400 million. Jeez, I can't talk, and I have to do a podcast. Yeah, I mean, look, the budget of that is huge. Like $400 million, it's nothing to shake a stick at. And you look at things like, let's say, like The Witcher 3 is a good example. The Witcher 3 cost $70 million to make, and that's a huge, sprawling, open world RPG. And, the developers, they did a wonderful job with that game. I think 300 people worked on that game. And it was in development for, I believe, 4 years. And yeah, you can see every penny on screen when you play that game. With how big and immersive that open world is. Gears of War E-Day, you look at that game, and that is probably the best looking game of all time, in my opinion. I've never seen a game like that. But you look at the cost of it. Like, where else does that money come from? And like, the truth is, like, most of the money these games cost, it's not because of the fancy graphics. It's not because of you know, the amount of vending machines they have in the office. It's because these developers, like, they have to be paid for all these, uh, hours and days spent, right? Like, they have to be paid like a higher than living wage. A lot of these studios are in places that are super expensive, right? Like California and all that stuff, right? A lot of British studios are in London. Why? Like, it's the most expensive place in the UK. And like, that's where, like, if you have a game that's in development for 6 years and you have a team of what, 300 people, yeah, that's an expensive game. But yeah, $400 million, Nick. That is it's absurd. And we're going to be talking about it in a bit. Like, I personally feel that the price of games in general is way too high. We talk about this all the time. The budgets of games have gotten to the point now where a game has to be a huge success out of the gate. The Witcher 4 is the best example. That game is reported to cost also $400 million, and that game, will it do well? I very much think so. Everyone likes what we see from The Witcher 4 so far. It's Ciri. Everyone loves Ciri. So, like, out of the gate, I think that game's going to be fine. But, like, there's only a handful of games that I think that could do well that cost that much. You have Sony, their Wolverine game that costs $300 million. Ridiculous amount of money, but will that make its money back? I honestly think it will. These superhero games, we don't get many single player superhero games. So I think that'll be fine. But yeah, the cost of games at the minute is just too high. They need to figure a way to bring the cost down. The easiest way to bring the cost down would actually to move these studios to places that aren't as expensive. But then you're acquiring hundreds of people to move. So, it's like this weird like circle of infinity, right? Where you have a snake eating its own tail, where the developers have to drive there or live there to work. But if you move out elsewhere that isn't expensive, those developers all have to move, and that's probably equally as expensive for the company to pay for. Right? So like, it's this weird back and forth. But look, what's your take on that? Because we talk about games budgets costing way too much all the time, and 400 million for Gears, 300 million for Wolverine, another 400 million for Witcher 4. Like, at the minute, it's getting a bit out of hand.
Yeah, it's it's like the old meme. The cost of game development is too blank high.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. And Matt, we're gonna get further into the specific studios that were closed and reasons why, and Matthew Ball and strategy and other stuff later. But I reckon a decent part of it is location and the pricing. Like, you look at some of these studios that have been or are rumored to be shut down or spun off or whatever. Like, again, we'll get it more into it later, but on this we can talk location. Like, Ninja Theory's in Cambridge, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yep.
I'm not British, but I'm pretty sure Cambridge is a rather posh and
Yeah.
pretty pricey
Yeah.
region. I know
Very.
Cambridge University, for crying out loud, is there. So, wouldn't think that's one of the cheapest places in the world to develop, especially when you built up a brand new studio location in the heart of that area. Like, that's just asking for finances stuff. Okay, then you go to Double Fine. Where are they located? Heart of San Francisco. You know
Ouch.
what one of the most expensive places in the world to live or in the United States is? San Francisco. Can you imagine a small team of like 40-ish people trying to develop a game in this industry in this economy while in San Francisco? How absurdly expensive that is and how unsustainable that is. Like it it was like, what are you doing, man? Like I get people live where they live, but you got to use your mind a little bit sometimes for like a in business sense for location. And then compulsion, I'm less familiar with Canada and Montreal and Quebec and like the regions and the economies up there. But again, kind of like the Tango situation a few years ago, where you have this one studio that's way out in the middle of, wherever, and they're kind of on an island by themselves, and it becomes like kind of a stretching of resources issue. My guess is that probably played at least a little part in this,
Yeah.
but the location probably just was a problem. But yeah, like ideally, in a perfect world, you would set up your studios in places that are, you know, good quality of life, but also not expletive expensive to live or run a business in. Like go to places that have tax incentives. Go to places that have, you know, um, you know, things to push for development and quality of life for the people where they're not having to charge so much to employees just so the employees can get a loaf of bread and live in their studio apartment. Like there's got to be a balance, and I think gaming in particular struggles with the work life balance and finances of locations because these people want to live in certain parts of the world, which okay, power to you, but if you want a business to thrive, you got to think outside the box some, and I think they're going to start doing that.
Yeah. Um, it is crazy when you say like a fancy studio in like a viaduct or something, where like they have a studio in one of the most expensive places in the world, and it's this whole building with several floors. Like Bungie, I think is a good example. Their office is huge, absolutely huge. Um, I think isn't Bungie's offices in Redmond?
It is indeed, which is notoriously a bad, expensive place to develop games.
Yeah, and you have like 800 people working there in an office that's like huge, absolutely massive. Like the game industry is not really sustainable at the minute. You will see people online blaming Game Pass to cop out, and I'll prove in a bit why it's a cop out. But yeah, the game industry's in an awful place. I mean, look, a while ago, how many times did we jump on a podcast and talk about how many studios Embracer's laid off? Right, this isn't like a new thing. It's been going on for like a decade now, where just games are costing way too much. And it's kind of why I roll my eyes when people talk about next generation, how we're going to have these super realistic graphics all the time. And all I can think is like, do you really think we're going to get that from all these games? Because we aren't, right?
That's
We
a monkey paw. You better be careful what you wish for there.
Yeah, and like, people have told me like they can't wait to like all open world games look like Hellblade 2. It's like that's not going to happen.
What universe, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've glazed Crimson Desert a million times. It's a gorgeous game, don't get me wrong, but that game doesn't rely on super realistic graphics. It relies on just being a good-looking game with the environment and everything. But if that game looked like, let's say, Hellblade 2, that game would probably be in development for about 8 years, right? Um, so like that's super unrealistic, and I really hope. Oh yeah, and if I say the term not triple A but quadruple A game, which Ubisoft's used, Xbox has used, I think EA may have called one of their games quadruple A.
Dad
Just
game.
yeah, just stop calling it quadruple A. Like just stop it. Yeah, that and the 10-year plan. Stop both of those things. We just don't need it. Um, but yeah, anyway, we'll continue because we have a bunch of topics left. My God. Okay, so I don't know if we talked about this last week, but I'll mention it briefly. So last week, Nintendo had their showcase, had a bunch of cool games there. They showed off the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake. I know a lot of people were really happy with that announcement. It actually looks really realistic, like for other Zelda games or compared to other Zelda games. Logan, are you looking forward to that? Because like we don't talk about Nintendo much, but the reaction online was pretty big.
Considering Ocarina of Time is one of like my favorite games ever made, yeah, I'm very much all about that. Um,
Nice. Yeah, but
it's one of the most transformative games I've ever played. Like I can't say enough of how impactful that game was on me personally growing up. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
yeah, I always get made fun of when I mention my favorite Zelda game,
Which one?
Wind Waker.
Wind Waker's good. It was not my favorite. Like I would say it's between Ocarina and Twilight for me.
Yeah. Uh, my God, I absolutely adored Wind Waker. Like, I don't know what it was about it. Maybe it was like sailing in your little tiny boat, uh, with the unusually large crane on it. But yeah, loved that game. But yeah, Nintendo they knocked it out the park. But one of the things that was there was a bunch of Kingdom Hearts stuff, and people did the thing they always do, right? They showed off um, Kingdom Hearts 4, and a lot of people online immediately went to Twitter, opened up the official Kingdom Hearts Twitter account or Square Enix Twitter account to see if they posted the trailer with all of the console logos on, right? That's what I did. And yeah, Kingdom Hearts 4 is coming to Xbox the same day as other platforms, which is great to see. However, that game doesn't even have a release window at all. So that game is clearly far away. And by the way, for people listening, if you have any of the Kingdom Hearts games on Xbox, I think it's the same as other platforms as well. You're gonna be able to buy the new collection, which contains 1 through 3 plus the DLC, 50% off. And the new version is going to be native 4K, 60 frames per second. So like, even though I have 3 on disc and I have the collection digitally, I think I'm just going to get the whole trilogy digitally for 50% off. Kingdom Hearts 3 was phenomenal, by the way. Logan, did you ever play the Kingdom Hearts games?
Yeah, I played through the first one, but I hadn't gotten past that one.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3, man, what a good game. Yeah, the story makes no sense, but there's something so charming about those games. You know, you take Disney and Final Fantasy and smash it together, and it just works. But yeah, we should be seeing that game in the future, and again, you get the collection for 50% off, and the deal runs up to, I believe it's the day before it comes out in October, so that's pretty cool. You know what? We'll talk about the Stellar Blade thing now because Stellar Blade's been making waves, and we actually have some good news because in a week of, let's be honest, turmoil, it hasn't been a good week for some game news. However, Stellar Blade fans, or I should say, well, Xbox fans that want Stellar Blade, we have some good news. So Stellar Blade was originally announced for Xbox in 2021, I believe. It was under the name Project Eve. A lot of people, including myself, were very disappointed when Sony paid for third-party exclusivity. And, a lot of people thought it wouldn't come over. It was published by PlayStation. And when Death Stranding came to Xbox, that's when people saw an in. Because if a game is published by PlayStation, it could probably still come to other platforms under a different publisher. And then Shift Up, the developer behind Stellar Blade, said that, hey, they want to move the franchise going forward to a full multi-platform strategy, which is great. They were talking about how the sequel was going to be, multi-platform, and then they showed off the sequel at Summer Games Fest last week, and that game looks bonkers. My God. The opening scene with the train, as a fan of sci-fi, let me tell you, that scratched an itch. Because my God, I love sci-fi, and that game looks incredible. Look, by the way, what did you think of the Stellar Blade 2 trailer?
I'm all for more Stellar Braid, so I can't wait, man.
Yeah, it looked good. It actually looked like the opening train sequence of Final Fantasy VII, in a way.
Yeah, yeah, kind of, yeah.
But yeah, game looks great. As people know, the thumbnail is the new character, Eevee. I think that game's going to be phenomenal. And obviously people went to asking, Xbox straight away and shift up like, is the game coming to Xbox? But when the next day, uh, Stellblade 1 was on the Nintendo showcase, and a lot of people were asking, like, is this coming to Xbox? And yes, I did the thing where I immediately went to Shift Up's Twitter account to watch the trailer to see if there's an Xbox logo there. And unfortunately, no Xbox logo. uh, now, the comments under every single tweet they put out was just people asking for the Xbox version. And I was actually shocked to see how many people were asking for the Xbox version. There had to have been hundreds underneath each post.
I was in the trenches too. I was asking. I was like,
Yeah,
"Hey, quit clowning. Like, let's get this done."
yeah. Oh, I know, I saw it. And it's like a lot of us were trying to, like, get their attention. And every single time they'd put out like a new tweet of saying, hey, Stelblade coming to Switch. And, it's them marketing their own game now. They don't have the money of Sony pushing their games anymore, which I guess. I think they're doing a whole grassroots thing when it comes to marketing for the Switch version because they paying 100% for the marketing this time. So anyway, everyone kept on, hounding the developers, and I think it was the creative director, someone high up at Shift Up, basically acknowledged the Xbox stuff and said, "Look, we can't talk about it right now, and it's going to take some time." To me, I'm okay with that because they acknowledged it. And if they acknowledge it, that means it's happening. Because I've seen so many developers in the past that they've been asked about Xbox versions, and they just don't. If they don't acknowledge you, there's a high probability that the game's never coming over, right? But when they do, it likely means it is. And my ongoing theory is that it's going to be coming to Xbox the same day as the Switch 2. The problem is that, Nintendo's deal for how it was revealed will be about how, we're just going to talk about the Nintendo version for maybe a month or two and then announce Xbox. Same thing happened with Final Fantasy VII Remake last year. Nintendo had their showcase 3 days before Xbox's summer showcase, and everyone went wild on social media saying it's a disgrace, it's not coming to Xbox. And I try to tell people, like, we've seen this with a bunch of games, and I think it's the same situation. That's just my theory anyway. Logan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's coming to Xbox. My guess is Tokyo Game Show or later this year would be when they officially announce it. When it comes out, I don't know, but I think it will be revealed later this year.
Yeah, but hey, I think people should be happy because, like, I adore sci-fi, man, and I'll always talk about how we need more games. And that game looks cool. The sequel, if anything, looks like Ghost in the Shell. When that sequel does look like Ghost in the Shell to me, or Appleseed, that, yeah, it's sold. The day that releases, and I wouldn't surprise me if it's a shadow drop. That's going to sell really well. I mean, hell, the same thing happened. Like Death Stranding, you play it as a dude that carries boxes and turns the internet back on. And that game was
With
number
an
one in the UK on Xbox.
undead fetus.
Yeah. By the way, the fetus thing, I always thought was funny because, like, before you play the game, you see the fetus scenes and you're like, why is there a fetus on Norman Reedus' chest? Like, it didn't make any sense. And then you play the game, and even though you're still kind of wondering what the hell, it kind of does make sense. And Death Stranding, what a game. But yeah, people love that game. It's about a dude carrying a box. Silent Hill 2 did really well on Xbox when it came out last year. That was a random shadow drop on a random night.
So did F.
Yeah. By the way, Logan, do you think we'll see Death Stranding 2 on Xbox, same way we saw the first one?
I wouldn't say 100%, but I'd say highly likely, yes.
Yeah. Because I think it's been around a year, and I think it's time. Maybe it's my myself being impatient, but I mean, we'll see. Let's see what we got next. But hey, like Stellblade, I think a lot of people will be happy with that.
Especially with them working with Kojima on OD.
Oh
They
yeah,
have a good relationship with him right now. I'm pretty convinced we will be getting Death Stranding too at some point.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what we got next. Okay, Impulse, brand new game announced by the Splitgate developer. This is coming to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. I think that I think that comes out next week, and it's basically Titanfall 2 multiplayer, but mixed with Mirror's Edge, and it looks super cool. Um, Now it isn't free to play; it's going to be $20. Um, and I think they said they aren't going to be like really intrusive with microtransactions. I think paid for multiplayer is completely okay, um, as long as you don't do anything intrusive when it comes to like microtransactions. Because like there's so many premium games that come out that still get battle passes, and to me that's a big no-no. Because if you think about it, a battle pass is just a subscription. If you really think about it, um, but yeah, it looks really good, and that's called Impulse. It's I think it's 6v6 PvP multiplayer, and it has mechs as well, grappling hooks, wall running. It looks pretty cool. Uh, Next up we have Crimson Desert has sold 6 million units. What a game! I'll try not glaze that game too much, but I will say this: the game paid off for me when I waited 2 months to play it. Because they put the camera patch in, which I wanted. And so if you're late to playing Crimson Desert, you're going to get an even better product. The amount of patches out for the game, I really hope other single-player developers actually pay attention to this and start, putting out more content for their single-player games. Support them longer. And, it's going to pay off for them because they'll sell longer as well. I think Crimson Desert, it's going to have a long tail with its sales. It's probably going to sell like The Witcher 3 when it comes to like just how often it sells for. Like, Logan, do you think what do you think of Crimson Desert sales so far at 6 million?
I think that's a great number, and I hope it keeps climbing. I'm happy to see new IP have success to go alongside established franchises. Like, as much as I love older franchises and want them to stick around for as long as possible, there is a need for new blood to go alongside it to become other franchises and other stuff too. So, this is a great start.
Yeah. Um I think that look if you look at Ubisoft with their single player games, they're putting out their final patch for Assassin's Creed Shadows, bunch of new content in there, missions and whatnot, cutscenes. Um I would really like more developers just to, take the time and just like if Crimson Desert hasn't had a ton of marketing in the UK, but it's had an incredible word of mouth. Like a lot of people are just talking about Crimson Desert. They say, "Hey, this brand new fantasy open world game, super cool," which is really nice to see. Um, oh, I'll talk about this quickly before we get into the big stuff because the big stuff is we're going to be here for a while. So some really good news came out. So last week during Nintendo's showcase, they announced Dragon's Dogma 2 DLC. And the Dragon's Dogma 2 came out. I think it was 2 years ago. It was either 2 or 3 years ago. Anyway, it sold really well, and people just thought they're not going to support the game. And even though that's a single player RPG, it had very annoying microtransactions the way they did it. For instance, you put down these crystals throughout the world to lay down fast travel points, and you could actually pay for them with real money, right? So you have this single player fantasy game, big, beautiful open world game with fun combat, very immersive game. But to basically get more fast travel points, you had to pay real money. Like, it was super bad. Anyway, it turns out with the big patch that comes out in August, which is going to have a bunch of quality of life stuff, which is great, they are completely removing microtransactions, which is incredible. Because the reason I dropped the game to begin with is one of the reasons was because the way microtransactions work in that game. I got to a point where I couldn't really progress further forward, and this should help with that. Now, Logan, I know you haven't played, Dragon's Dogma 2, but what's your thought about them going back with, they coming out with a brand new expansion, but they also patching out microtransactions?
Yeah, I think it's good news. It gives the game more life, might attract some new eyes to the game, get people back and interested, and maybe some people who were turned off by it originally will give it another shot. Plus, the fact that they're either getting rid of or severely altering, like Dragon's Rot or Curse or Blight or whatever it
Yeah.
was, will help a lot too.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, and this is actually the coolest game mechanic this generation, but it's also one I hate. So they have this thing in the game called Dragon's Plague. And in the game, you can hire these things called pawns. And these are other characters, the NPC characters that will travel the world with you. But when you are not playing, your pawns can be sent off into other people's games to help them, right? And you can give those characters rewards, which you will get when they come back into your game. It's a really cool gameplay mechanic. However, in the sequel, they had that, but they put this thing in called Dragon's Plague. And it's a game breaking mechanic because, by the way, by design. So your characters, your pawns, could go off into someone else's world that's been infected with this disease called Dragon's Plague, and you get it by fighting dragons. And you have to be really careful to not get it. Like I refuse to encounter dragons in that game because of this disease. And the only way you can tell that your characters have it is if you zoom in on them and to see if they have red eyes, right? So far, you might be thinking, well, that doesn't sound so bad. No, it's terrible because you can fast travel or sleep one night in a inn, like in a town somewhere, and Dragon's Plague will make your characters basically implode and kill every single NPC in the village, right? And because of that, you can't progress quests. So you can effectively break your own game because of this mechanic. And you have to find a certain item to revive people, but you have to do it one at a time. So let's say you need to complete a certain quest, but everyone in your town is deceased. You're going to have to spend hours upon hours reviving everyone. Right? That's one of the reasons I also stopped playing. Dragon's Plague is a cool gameplay mechanic, but they had some sort of masochist thing of that because, like, oh, by the way, this game you just bought, you enjoying it? We're going to ruin it. We're going to mess up your good time with this game because of this cool gameplay mechanic. Like, they could have came up with any way to make like Dragon's Plague work in an interesting, cool way outside of, the initial way it's, your characters get infected. But the fact that it could break your game, I don't know what they were thinking. Logan, what do you think? Because like that mechanic was awful, but interesting at the same time.
Yeah, super cool idea, and I love creativity, but they really needed to nerf it, and I'm glad they are now.
Yeah, because I got to a point where I was being really paranoid about my characters, and I'd constantly be zooming in on the faces. And the only way you can cure them is by ending their lives in the game. You'd have to basically pick, because characters can't swim in that game, so you'd have to pick them up and throw them into a river. And I'd always be thinking, maybe today's the day.
I remember that in Sims, like
Oh yeah,
people putting their characters in pools and taking the ladders out and
yeah.
stuff.
I think everyone did that in The Sims at some point. Or you put them in like a small room without a toilet.
I never did that one,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I definitely didn't do that. Especially to a character named after my ex, but I didn't do that. Let's see what we got next. You know what? We have a lot of big topics. We'll just get into them now because my god. You know what? We'll quickly talk about this, which actually has something to do with the main topics. Is I'm 900% convinced that free-to-play games have ruined the game industry. I know that's a
it
bit
broke the
controversial,
market.
but I noticed a lot of problems arise as soon as like we talk about the seventh gen all the time, right? And do we have nostalgia goggles on when we talk about this stuff? Yeah, we really do. But at the same time, like we didn't really have free to play games back then, and these gamers, you'd go out there and you'd buy a game and you'd play it, and then you'd get things like map packs for them, or you'd buy indie games, right? And most games back then didn't even launch digitally. So people were kind of encouraged to play different games. And I feel like Fortnite, when that came out, and this is what I'm about to say isn't a bad thing about Fortnite. It's just the business practice of Fortnite and other free to play games. I noticed when Fortnite came out and all these other free to play games did as well, there is almost this shift where there's these like millions upon millions of people that only play free to play games, right? So you'll have someone that buys a console and they'll only play this free to play game and they're not putting any more money into the game industry, right? Um, I noticed like people would be more willing to play different kinds of games in the seventh gen, um, because this weird zeitgeist of hey, you have to play Fortnite or Warzone or Apex or whatever free to play game, and like a lot of these people, yeah, they might buy microtransactions, but you're getting one company getting that money and that's it. And I feel like the people that really put money into the game industry are people that play single player games. Because you play a game, you buy it, you get microtransactions such as skins or expansions, and then you play a different game, and then another game, and then another one, you know? And it's like myself and Logan, right? Like, we buy multiple games a year, a bunch of them, get expansions, maybe the occasional skin or whatever, right? And like that's a lot of money being funded into the game industry. But if you have someone that buys a console and they only play Fortnite, let's say, or Warzone, and they don't do the battle pass and they don't buy skins, then none of these companies, Microsoft, Sony, Epic, none of these companies are making money off that person, right? And I never heard of these types of people in the seventh generation, right? There was no free to play game that everyone had to play. You know, yeah, a lot of people played Call of Duty, but guess what? You had to buy those map packs to stay in the player pool with other players. And I felt like people were more encouraged to play other games. And we're seeing this ripple effect now where you have a handful of small free to play games that will do really well. Everything else seems to just be failing straight away. Competition really can't exist in the world we live in at the minute because, look, if you have Call of Duty, are you really going to look at a game that looks like Call of Duty? If you're a Fortnite fan, are you going to look at a game that looks like Fortnite? Probably not, right? So we can't have competition in this reality. And those people, they aren't putting money back into the game industry because they only play one game. Before we get into all the Xbox stuff, which is related to this, Logan, what do you think about the whole free-to-play thing I just mentioned? Because I think what I said might be considered controversial, but that's just how I feel.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I think Fortnite uh and its ilk ruined the industry, honestly. Um the fact that it got so big that you have, you know, cluster cluck ideas at Disney to reveal plot points of a Star Wars movie in it for crying out loud. It's like, what are we doing? Like, how did we get to this point? And I get it. A lot of people like it. I'm happy they're happy. But it feels like we had a really good thing going. And this came along and put a tornado through town. And everybody picked up the pieces, and this is what's left. Things have been shuffled around. And the new way of doing things is causing problems for the old traditional standard operating procedure and way people enjoyed and want to experience stuff. Because I don't feel they're cohabitable. Like, I guess maybe they are, but for the most part, you can't expect to sell, 500 to $1,000 console units and make profit on those and ecosystem wise, subscription wise, etc. When you get these people who are like, I'll call them freeloaders, whatever, free to play only people who jump on the platform and only play those, especially if they don't buy the skins or anything. It's basically like they pay a one time fee, which is a loss for your company, and then they are just skating by on the internet because you've removed, Xbox Live Gold requirement or PlayStation whatever requirement or other stuff to play these. So as long as you pay for internet, you're getting to play these, which okay, but at the end of the day, that's something that might need to be revisited because I mean, if only one console did it, then it would be a death sentence for that console to make it where you have to pay for multiplayer for these free to play games. But if all of them went back to doing it, then maybe they could curtail this. But I don't know if they have the balls to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I mentioned the whole free to play thing being like the downfall of the industry is because I just saw more people playing more games back then. Back in the seventh gen. Before free to play was a thing, right? And you'd have games that would be like free to try over a weekend or some smaller games, but like with Fortnite being like Fortnite was a huge phenomenon. It came out and like what they've been able to do in that game to me is super impressive, right? You have all these different intellectual properties which can be played in the same game. To me, that's super impressive. They had concerts in the game. They had things for people to do when we're all stuck in the house, right? I think Fortnite is ridiculously good with what they've been able to do, and the advancements they've made in Unreal Engine because of that game. But like when it comes to the business side of it, like one battle passes took over everything, right? That Justice League game, apparently they had to change everything because it was a lot like Fortnite's monetization system with battle passes, right? And that's a single player / co-op game, right? Um, it, it I just feel like we didn't have these problems back then, and yeah, games cost considerably more now. But you have some. I remember, I think it was Reggie Fils-Aimé that said that for Nintendo to make a profit on the Wii U, they need to sell one console and one game, right? And that console would get a profit because of that, right? But now you have these people that are they play in their Xboxes and PlayStations just for a free to play game, right? There's no money going to Microsoft. There's no money going to PlayStation, and like look at what PlayStation said in the past, right? Without Call of Duty, they're done, right? They make a lot of money from Call of Duty's, the percentage they get on skins and stuff, right? Call of Duty skins sell ridiculously well. Or at least they did pre Black Ops 7. The amount of times I'd fire up Call of Duty Warzone and see like Homelanders running around everywhere, or like Rick Grimes all the time, because people bought those skins and they loved them. And I feel like if you buy a PlayStation or an Xbox and you only play Fortnite or Warzone and you don't buy anything afterwards, you're not really contributing anything to the gaming industry, right? Like hell, these people aren't even paying for subscriptions because it's free to play games on I think both Xbox and PlayStation now. So like the industry isn't getting any money off these people. Yet the player numbers have gone up, right? The amount of people that are getting into the game industry gaming right now is less than ever. The console user base for the past 20 plus years has been around 200 million players. That number isn't getting any bigger. In fact, it's getting smaller. Everyone that does get into gaming now, most of those people are free-to-play gamers, where they aren't putting money into the game industry. So you have all these companies that were, they were bolstering up their studios during the pandemic when we were all stuck in the house, right? All these companies were hiring all the time, buying companies, right? Because people were stuck in the house, and there's people like me and Logan, everyone watching right now, where they had more free time to buy games. I bought way more games during Logan, with all the lockdowns. Did you buy more games?
Oh, 100%. Like I went to nuts on games and movies and shows during the pandemic. Like absurd amount.
Yeah, and like I saw a lot of people do that. A lot of people bought way more games. I bought way more. I bought a lot of games I didn't play because I just thought why not. But like I bought way more games, and a lot of people did. But these free to play gamers, I bet a lot of them just stuck with what they were playing. So everyone in the gaming industry were hiring up. Like Ubisoft, they had tens of thousands of developers making their games. tens of thousands, right? I think the amount of teams that made Assassin's Creed Origins, I think there was like 22 different studios that worked on that game, right? But like a lot of studios, like they're bolstering like the amount of employees they had. The game industry had a lot of money coming in, but as soon as all those lockdowns ended, and as soon as people had less free time, the game industry made way less money, right? So you have and
Touching grass is real.
yeah, and you know, but by the way, do you know a funny fact about the UK? Because in the UK we essentially had 4 lockdowns. The first one was 4 months long. The second one I think was 2 months long. The third one was 2 months, and I think the fourth one was also 4 months. So we're all stuck in the house in a country where we drink a lot of alcohol. Do you know during that first lockdown, the UK consumed as much alcohol during the lockdowns as we were beforehand, because people were just getting people were just getting absolutely, like, let's say it, faced in the house.
Were you guys moonshining or just
no,
making homebrew?
no, because the only places that were open during those lockdowns were takeaways and supermarkets. So you'd have people that
Okay.
would be going to the supermarket to get food, and they just have a trolley full of booze.
That's great.
And I can attest to that. I had a fridge full of cider. So nice. But anyway, we were all stuck in the house. These companies were making bank, but as soon as we all went back to work and studios were open again, the industry was making way less money. All these companies, they overhired. Microsoft, they bought Activision just after that era kind of ended. Bethesda, they bought to. I honestly think part of the reason they bought Bethesda, other than the fact that Bethesda wanted to be bought, is because they wanted to be bought, but also Xbox needed to bolster their Xbox Series announcement. I feel like when they announced the Xbox Series S, I feel that whole thing was planned, because people looked at that thinking, oh, we're going to get exclusive Bethesda games. Anyway, where am I going with this? So over the past weekend, all these rumors start coming out about Xbox, which happens all the time now. And basically, the rumor is that, one, Xbox is going back to having multi-platform games across the board, and the other one was that Microsoft are going to get rid of a bunch of studios. And there's been this weird back and forth over the past couple of days. By the way, Logan, you've probably noticed this, although I know you haven't been online much over the past couple of days. People just can't have disagreements online. They have to argue. Right?
Yeah, it's insane.
It's like, you can't just disagree with someone, right? You have to attack their point of view. You have to say, hey, this person's wrong, I'm right, And I kind of hate that. It leads to there's no discussion from it, because people are just arguing. And, like, look, Microsoft, new leadership, Asha Sharma, she said they need to have a reset, right? A lot of Xbox studios that's been listed for, being sold off. At least a few of these studios might be now sold off. But a lot of things that we've seen from these studios is that all the studios mentioned that might be shut down are studios that aren't making money, right? So Double Fine, they came out with Psychonauts 2 a couple of years ago. Absolutely phenomenal game. And if people haven't played it, please play it. Incredible game. And by the way, the only reason that game has boss fights is because of Microsoft's money. So, yeah. But the past 2 games they came out with, they haven't done that well. Keeper in 2025 didn't exactly light the world on fire, even though it was a really cool adventure game where you play as a lighthouse in the Seabird. And then you have Kiln that came out, like, a month ago. And by the way, that game had a 1-year roadmap. That is a PvP pottery brawling game. These games they aren't doing that well. And, I'll get into the whole Game Pass thing in a minute. You have people going online saying, hey, actually, I'll talk about the Game Pass thing right now. You have people saying, hey, people aren't playing this game because it's in Game Pass. Game Pass needs to end, blah, 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 blah. Those 2 games I just mentioned are multi-platform. So, like, putting everything on Xbox is a bit short-sighted. You know, did people on PlayStation pick these games up? Evidently not. Did people on Nintendo pick these up? Evidently not. Same with PC. Nobody bought these games. Nobody wanted to play them. And I like the fact that Microsoft, they have studios that make these small, riskier games. I like the fact that we have games with different art styles that do something different. But the truth is, the large portion of gamers out there, they don't care about this stuff. They want these shiny AAA quote unquote bangers that have cinematic cutscenes, right? And where I do like those games, but personally, I like a lot of variety, and unfortunately, variety just doesn't sell that well. So you have them. You have Ninja Theory. Ninja Theory is probably one of the most interesting ones because when they were purchased by Microsoft, Hellblade 1 was a critically acclaimed game. Ninja Theory had worked with Microsoft before. And, during the pandemic, they had a whole new headquarters built, right? And that was clearly an expensive building to make. In fact, their motion capture studio is one of the best in all of Europe and UK, right? To the point where you have people working on movies going there for motion capture, right? That's how good their studio is. But, like, the first game, critical acclaim, did well, okay in sales, right? The second game was poised as this Unreal Engine 5, showpiece for the Xbox Series X. But its 30 FPS controversy that it had at the time, which I think was a stupid controversy, the game didn't do well, and then when it went multi-platform, it didn't do well either, right? And bear in mind, when it comes to success for Xbox, when it comes to Game Pass, it's not about sales, it's about the amount of people that play these games. That's their metric for success, and still is. People are playing other games. And they announced Senua at the Xbox Game Showcase last week, and they announced, like, hey, this is an action game, right? It's very action-focused. None of these really confusing puzzles that some people didn't like. A full-on focused action game. And I thought, wow, this is actually going to do pretty well. You're catering to the action crowd, and it looks really good. Nice. And then they announced, we find out last night, that they might be shutting down Ninja Theory or selling them off. Well, their previous two games didn't make much money. They clearly an expensive studio to run because they have their studio in Cambridge, which is one of the most expensive places in the country. And again, they have a fancy new office. So, like, I don't know how much that cost, right? That must have been a crap ton. And it's heartbreaking because these studios, they're so talented. If any of these studios do get let go, I hope someone picks them up immediately. Because, like, Microsoft resetting clearly means they need to, and I hate using this term, and I don't mean it in a negative way. It's just I can't think of a better term. It seems like Microsoft is cutting the fat. These riskier games don't make any money. And as I've mentioned earlier today, the best example I can come up with is Ubisoft. Ubisoft used to make these big AAA games and a lot of variety, right? They came out with Splinter Cell, Far Cry, Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, huge AAA games. But they also had smaller side projects like Rayman and Valiant Hearts, right? These indie-style games that people liked. What was that? Look, do you remember that the name of that JRPG style game they came out with? It was called The Something of Light, where you played as a little girl.
Child of Light.
Yeah.
It was like an old little, like, fairy tale, like, child story. It was really good.
Yeah, really good game, but very experimental for Ubisoft. And you saw those two types of games, but those smaller games, they cost a lot of money to make, but nobody really played them in the grand scheme of things. So now Ubisoft doesn't do smaller scale games. And because of that, we see less risk. And what I'm saying from Microsoft right now, if this is true, these studio closures, it looks like we're going to see the same thing. We're seeing the same thing from Sony. Do you know in the 7th gen, Sony used to come out with things like that Princess game, I can't remember what it was called. It was like a platformer. You had the fighting game, PlayStation All-Stars, and they look at PlayStation's another prime example. If you think about it, they shifted away from all these cool experimental games like Motorstorm.
Gravity Rush.
Yeah, All these cool experimental games, but now they come out with what? Single player, third person, cinematic, over the shoulder game. Right? They get made fun of because of that, but the truth is that's the games that sell on PlayStation. Um, and we're going to start seeing the same for Xbox, where they're going to shift to a strategy where basically they're going to focus on main IP. You're going to have your Halos, you're going to have your Gears, you're going to have your Fables and Forzas, right? And I do think things like the StarCraft shooter that's in development, I think that will do well because StarCraft has a huge fan base, and it being a sci-fi shooter, I think it'll do well. But I think the days of seeing things like a kiln or a keeper or a pentiment, I think those days are done. Because you have a big studio making a smaller game that doesn't do well. It doesn't have a lot of players in Game Pass. It doesn't sell well at all, even on other platforms. And the truth is, Risk, we don't see much of it now. We're going to see less of it because of it's expensive. And the only way you're going to see Risk going forward is from AA and Indie. But the thing about those two things I just mentioned there, they are run by smaller studios, and they don't typically have a studio in LA where they can make a game that is cheaper, more experimental, right? More Risk, right? But it is a shame, and Ninja Theory, Double Fine, Obsidian. Obsidian, by the way, I think Obsidian, one of the reasons why I think they're safe is because they're a big RPG studio. They can help with Fallout going forward, things like that. South of Midnight has been mentioned as a studio that's getting shut down. By the way, this is a weird statistic I never saw till last night, and I never really thought about it. They've made 3 games in 13 years. Crazy.
That is not efficient.
Yeah. And this other statistic surprised me. Now, I don't know if this is official, but if it is, it's horrifying. So, allegedly, South of Midnight cost $100 million to make.
Okay.
Like, by the way, Logan, did you play South of Midnight?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I actually thought it was a really good story, well done. The combat got a little monotonous, but I enjoyed the story. The Tim Burton style animations were gorgeous. Like, I thought they were cooking with an idea for a series. So I am disappointed, but as we'll get to, I understand the why of things.
Yeah. And like South of Midnight, right? That's a 6 to 7 hour single player action adventure game. And by the way, I love that. I love that game's art style. I thought it was a really fun game. I loved the musical sections where you're climbing up the tree
Hmm.
and the music's playing. I thought that was really cool. But like to sell that game to a mass audience, I don't think that worked. Making it multi-platform didn't help either. That game didn't sell anything. And yeah, $100 million. By the way, I looked online. So that game cost $100 million. Do you know Kingdom Come Deliverance cost $40 million? And that game is far bigger than South of Midnight. So you have these studios that they're making these games over like many years, and they come out and like critically done really well, right? It's getting awards still, which is cool, but like nobody's playing these games, and that is a risky game. Like, that game has a lot of cool different areas that I'd say that is risky. The art style I think's risky. Like I was saying before, I think people just want super AAA realistic, cinematic games. These games that are taking risks, they aren't doing well. So you have compulsion games where that's their thing. The game they came out with, and I think in 2012, didn't do that well. The game that they came out with in 2016 didn't do that well. And then you have this, didn't do that well. So, like, I can kind of see why that studio would be on the chopping block, and I think I messaged you, Logan, like, I think that might be them or something like that. And it's just it's so sad to say, but it's an industry thing. And by the way, I just found out it looks like 50% of Bungie might be getting shut down or laid off.
Oh, there you go. You can always count on Sony to sneak in under the rug when Microsoft is getting publicly roasted alive. Like Sony will drop their bad news right
Yeah.
as that's happening.
Um, and yeah, they have, let's see, yeah, 800 employees.
I
Um,
mean, that would be the equivalent of several studios, yeah.
yeah. But the whole industry's a mess, man. Um, so anyway, Logan, I've been talking about Xbox and the whole situation for 10 minutes. Like, take your time. What's your take? Because it is a messy situation and uh, just bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to really sugarcoat this. It sucks. I don't like it. It sucks. It shouldn't be this way, but it is a reality. Um, as we mentioned earlier, I think a large part is where these studios are located. Right or wrong, the place the devs chose to live and chose to shut up shop for a studio was not conducive for the modern industry and modern cost of living and modern cost of development. Like maybe like you mentioned Kingdom Come, they are located in a different country and a different region where the price of development is astronomically less than some of these places that are getting shut down or sold off. And that plays a big part. Also, you got to look at what these people are making. Okay, a pottery brawler. Like, no shade to whoever came up with that. It's a fun idea. I'm happy they were allowed to create their vision and put it out there. But where's the market for that? Who is asking for this? Like seriously, who is asking for this game? And then you've got, like Obsidian. Like honestly, I think Obsidian's legacy, Obsidian's veteran leadership, the connection to Fallout, and Grounded saved their bacon this time. I like because where they are is not cheap, and they've had two duds in a row. Like right or wrong, they were duds. And you can't have three strikes in a row and expect to keep thriving as a studio. Plus, they had Pentiment, which sold like 20 copies. Okay, even as a multi-plat. Again, who was asking for that game? I know you did it as a favor to a developer there who is a passionate, outstanding developer and writer, and you want to keep your talent happy. I get that. But at the same time, these things cost money. Who is actually going to play this? Who actually wants this? And again, who are you trying to appeal to? Are you trying to appeal to the common people, the common audience? Like, your normal, like, man, I got my 9 to 5, I come home, I just want to blast some aliens or zombies, or have a good story, or a fun adventure, folks, are you trying to appeal to the critic types? Because those are vastly different audiences and groups you're trying to appeal to. Just like in films. Like I appreciate all kinds of movies, but there are some films that come out there that are so obviously tailored for the people who sniff their own fart critic type, um, just so pretentiously out of touch, obnoxious types versus what is meant for just regular folks who just want a good time and don't want some visionary or um lesson on something or something like that. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a place for everything, especially in films. Like, I love Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was a masterpiece. Incredible. Just a juggernaut film in all aspects, heavyweight, all that. But there's only like so many. You don't want all your films to be like that, and there can only be a few of them. Otherwise, people get burnt out because, man, when I left that movie, I was like, man, what did I just experience? Like, I really need to process this, think about it. Versus like I go see Twister and I'm like, heck yeah, big old red truck, tornadoes,
Yeah.
good song soundtrack, pretty girl. let's go. It's just completely different. And to me, I feel like the Microsoft was, how we talk about how sometimes people listen to critics or listen to their naysayers too much and try to over appeal to them and forget their core audience?
Yep.
I think that Microsoft overcompensated and started going, okay, we're going to try to really win over these folks or some of these people who haven't been in our corner and they lost sight of their core audience. Halo, for example, and other stuff like that. And nobody bought them because nobody really wanted these or cared about these in a large scale. And it it sucks. It's not fair. It's not nice. But at the end of the day, if you keep making games that flop, if your games are incredibly expensive, you live in incredibly expensive places and have to pay your workers a ton of money, and nobody buys your product or wants it at all, you're probably not going to exist very long as a studio. And bottom line, when you're a new leader and you're given a hot hand grenade of a potato to deal with by a previous administration who took the first exit ramp on the highway when they saw this road coming, just saying what it feels like. Yeah, you're gonna have to make some tough calls. And like a wolf in a bear trap, sometimes you gotta gnaw your own foot off to get out. And you'll live, you're weakened by it, but you'll live and you'll come back meaner and harder and stronger for it. But it sucks. And that's what she did. Leadership was given a real Sophie's choice. No good options, and they had to choose which they thought would survive the best and what could save the brand. And they did what they thought is necessary. Do I like it? No. Do I understand it? Yes. And I respect that at least they were transparent about it. And going forward, I expect more transparency and honesty. And the whole thing sucks. The messaging sucks. And especially another free advice, if you're going to have routine yearly bloodlettings of studios or studio staff, don't schedule your showcase right before that. Like, come on. You're not married to June anymore. E3 is dead. F killed that. COVID killed that. There is no E3 anymore. You're not married to June. You can do May. You can do other times a year to space it out to where it's not literally we are so back to we are so dead in a span of 2 weeks. You know how toxic relationship vibes that is for Xbox? It's like the Eminem and Rihanna duet song. It's just insane. And yeah, like there's only so many ways you can put it. It sucks. It's bad, but I get it. I understand it. And if people want to be mad online about it, I get it. But I'm not going to. I don't think it's helpful. I don't think this is a circumstance where being venomous and sending straight for the jugular kill shot tweets is going to help. Like there's a time and place to send angry, like y'all really bleeped up, we're mad, you need to fix this stuff. There are times where no amount of getting blue in the face and screaming and expletive laden rants and stuff is going to fix anything. Because this is one of those. This is just not going to fix it. It's just going to get them to tune you out because they're going to go, this person is just not someone we need to pay attention to, and they'll move on. Choose your battles. This is just not one that you're going to win.
Yeah, I mean, it's a messy situation. Obviously, we're going to talk about it next week, but we'll talk about the whole exclusive thing as well because, um, we were told at the Summer Games showcase that, hey, look, they're going to come out with multiple exclusives every year. Obviously, they're going to wear things up, and look, I think that's perfectly fine way to do it, right? Although I do think Halo and Fable should be exclusive. I would have pulled the ripcord on those games from other platforms, but I get it. Whatever. Um, I think that you promised they have exclusives coming out, and like Gears had so much traction because of last week. And like it's crystal clear, people want that game. Um, and the other day, some dude on a forum said, "Oh, by the way, Microsoft's already considering going back to multi-platforms." Like that. By the way, I hate the fact that some random dude on a forum can make something up, and it spreads throughout the community within hours to the point where people are making rage videos, clickbait, cringe thumbnails. Where people are atting Asha Sharma constantly. By the way, if you have a problem with Xbox or just like anything, you don't have to at them all the time. Because if you do that, they won't pay attention to you. They'll block you or mute you. That's what I do, and I get added like a fraction of what they get. But like we were told we were going to get exclusives. People freaked out the other day because they aren't apparently anymore. Anyway, so Microsoft has a tendency in the past to wait too long before responding to fake rumors and stuff. Well, anyway, it came out this morning that Chief Strategy Officer at Microsoft, or well, Xbox, Matthew Ball, just replied to Jez on Twitter saying like, "Look, we haven't changed anything. We haven't talked about anything internally. We're gonna have exclusives every year." Nice, right? Although notice all the people that made clickbait, they didn't rescind those articles or videos. They've still got them up. Tells you everything you need to know. So that's happening, and people are talking about what's going to be exclusive next, like because we don't actually know a lot of Xbox's future games outside of things like Elder Scrolls 6. Is Elder Scrolls going to be an exclusive now? Because that is a big tentpole game. To me, honestly, I think you should have that exclusive. One of the reasons why you bought Bethesda is like that IP. You have Obsidian that could make spin-offs or like things like Fallout. We did hear that Asha Sharma did want Fallout, Elder Scrolls to come out more often, which I think was actually low-key some of the best news this past week, which nobody's really talking about. Because Logan, how many times have we talked about that? Elder Scrolls and Fallout, like the time in between those games is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's been a sick joke. Talk about the whole life support game idea thing, but like that is honestly franchise malpractice how they have been managed, and Halo in particular. And for all the negative news that we did get in those same articles, the idea that Asha and Matt want to hone in and wrangle and get sorted Halo, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, and like their mega franchises and get them in a good place and steady cadence, spin-offs, other things, reliable content is amazing news. Like as bad as the other stuff is, and it is really bad, this is equally as good in my opinion because it's about blankety blank time for some of these. Like Fallout, like we're gonna be like 80 by the time that game was coming out at the
Yeah.
pace it was going. Elder Scrolls 6, I remember Elder Scrolls 5, Skyrim came out my senior year of high school in 2011. And then fast forward, we still haven't gotten the sequel, and it's 2026. Like, what are we doing here? 15 years? 15 years? Really? And you still don't have a sequel? Like, what are you doing? Like, I love Todd Howard and the leadership and the creative talent at Bethesda, but somebody needs a lot of fire under that operation or send in some recruits or something to speed these suckers up because there ain't no way it should be taking that long.
Yeah. Um, I think like if you have all those studios, you realistically can have um oh sorry you realistically can have uh someone else make Fallout, someone make an Elder Scrolls game.
Obsidian
Yeah,
in exile.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that it's ridiculous. Like you own these IPs, you own these different studios, get them working on it. Like Obsidian, right? They probably gonna make some really quirky game next, right? Which I would probably end up liking. But do you know what would make money? A Fallout game, right? It doesn't matter if it's a New Vegas style spin off, or just anything, right? If they make a new Fallout game, it's going to sell like hotcakes, and a lot of people are going to be playing it. But they aren't doing that, and Todd Howard is probably like really restrictive of those IPs, very protective. And I can get why, but like we can't go 11 is when bloody Skyrim came out. Uh,
I remember. It was
yeah,
a great day.
Yeah, like I know people in that time that have finished education, got married, and now have kids.
Yeah.
Like, come on, um, like something's got to give. Development's taking way too long for these games. Like I remember seeing development footage of Elder Scrolls 6 back in what 2018, and it was just like some dude like making rocks and stuff, right? Like, and when that game comes out, what when 2028 maybe like something's got to give, so like yeah, I do agree with Asher Sharma wanting to push these different IPs to come out more often. 13, 14, 15 years in between sequels is absurd. That shouldn't be a thing. And bear in mind, you have a studio that has what they'll have not made a game since Starfield, so this studio's potentially have been making what Elder Scrolls properly for like 4+ years, a studio that has hundreds of people in a super expensive place. Like game development is super pricey. Um, by the way, I posted. I'm gonna get a lot of crap for this. I'm just gonna talk about it now quickly. I just made a post on Twitter of all the studios that have been shut down since 2020. So Xbox has shut down 4 studios since 2020. Ubisoft has shut down around 5. I couldn't get the exact number, but it's around 5. PlayStation has shut down 8. But do you know who shut down the most studios? Embracer.
Was it? Oh yeah, Embracer. Like, my
Take
gosh, like
yeah, take a
yeah,
wild guess.
Red
I've got the
Wedding.
number.
Um, this feels like it might be a little high, but is it 23?
44.
24. I was close.
Oh no, 44.
Oh, 44.
Yeah,
Good lord.
yeah. And that is a big number, right? So like the whole industry's having a problem at the minute. And I've just opened up Twitter just now to make that post, and I'm already seeing tons of people in the game industry, other podcasters saying Xbox needs to get rid of Game Pass. I hate to break the obvious news to people. It's not Game Pass's fault, right? Blaming Game Pass
If it
for the
wasn't
entire
okay, go ahead.
industry-wide problems is a cop out. By the way, I just saw Kinda Funny Games, right? They put out a little video on Twitter not long ago talking about how Xbox needs to get rid of hardware. The doing the whole fake angry thing. At least it looks fake, comes across very fake. In videos, like I don't really
It's on
watch
brand.
their content much. Like I always get like the kind of like IGN light, but with swearing, because look at us, we're swearing in videos, so we cool. And the problem with that kind of swearing, and bear in mind, I'm a Brit. We swear all the time. It comes off as fake and forced and cringe. It's not natural swearing by any means. I'm a connoisseur of swearing, but like say Xbox needs to get out the hardware business. Bear in mind, I didn't see any of this disdain or distrust for when Sony shuts down studios. I didn't, but bear in mind, these are the same people that protected Insomniac from leaks. But do you know what the leak about any other game? Everything, right?
They know who
Polygon put out.
butters their bread, Jamie.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, they know exactly. Yeah.
Polygon puts out an article like 4 hours ago saying Microsoft needs to sell Xbox before they ruin everything, right? So we're blaming Game Pass for everything, even though, as far as I know, Game Pass isn't on PlayStation. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Embracer, who doesn't own a console, has Game Pass, right? Ubisoft, same thing, right? So everyone just blaming Game Pass. It's a cop out. Nobody wants to talk about the real problem in the industry. And what were we talking about around an hour ago? These black hole games sinking in people's money. Right? The actual problem. Game development costed way too much. And shutting down Game Pass, if people think that's gonna solve Xbox's problems, they're out of their minds. And I mean that in the most polite way possible. Because yes, we could easily blame Game Pass. Sure, right? But that's not going to. If Microsoft gets rid of Game Pass tomorrow, congratulations. They're going to have billions of less to spend on gaming each year, right? You're going to have one of the reasons right now to have an Xbox go away because they don't have exclusives, right? As of right now, until Gears comes out. So like, there's this weird thing where people just want to blame Game Pass than rather talk about than the real issues, and I just don't understand why, right? Are people getting a kickback off Fortnite or Apex Legends developers? No, I think it's just a lazy cop out, right? Blaming Game Pass all the time. It's not the problem. It's the black hole games. It's the fact that we don't have new people coming into the game industry and buying multiple games each year. You have people that only play free to play games. The fact that games cost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. The fact that you have licenses. Like look at Spider-Man 2, the video game. I think they had like some absurd price they had to pay Marvel for that license, right? It's absurd, right? So yeah, the Game Pass thing is ridiculous. These media outlets, including Kind of Funny, saying Xbox needs to leave hardware. Let me tell you, if Xbox leaves hardware, which they won't, you're gonna see Sony going back to their PlayStation 3 days or PlayStation 2 days where they got super cocky, right? You're going to see less variety than ever before. You're going to see games go up to $90. For some reason, when it comes to Xbox, people show their true colors and they don't want competition anymore. They don't want Xbox to compete. They never have. They never have. It's all about this elitist mindset where everything Xbox does is bad, and even if they do something bad that needs to be talked about, other companies don't get that same coverage. So bear in mind, PlayStation shut down 8 studios. Xbox has shut down 4. Who's had the most talk? Xbox, right? I've talked about this a million times, but I'll mention it before we close out the show. We still have the rest of this topic to go. But Xbox in 2014 came out with a feature on Xbox One that lets you play media files from a hard drive.
Oh, the piracy thing.
And Kotaku's thumbnail in the article was a pirate ship, right? And the title of the article was Xbox One now lets you play pirated movies, right? A year later, PlayStation got the same feature, and the title of that article was PlayStation 4 now lets you play media files, right? And it was just a picture of the PlayStation Blue logo, right? It was the same writer. The same story, wrote 2 different ways, right? This has been going on for years, this hypocrisy in gaming. And some people will say Xbox tax. I don't like using that term. It sounds too tinfoil hatty. But realistically, people are right, So Xbox bad because of... Bear in mind, any of these studios shutting down is bad, right? I'm not defending it. I think the whole thing's stupid. I think these companies clearly have the money that goes towards Xbox, PlayStation, Embracer, Ubisoft. EA hasn't actually been too bad when it comes to layoffs. Nintendo basically doesn't have layoffs. But like the fact that we only call Xbox out for these problems is a problem in itself. And like, look, when the Gears of War thing was announced as exclusive, do you know beforehand Gears of War wasn't announced for any other platform? So you have people angry that Microsoft are going back to what they used to do with a game that was never promised for other platforms. Right? We're seeing in real time the hypocrisy across the board. people showing their true colors, Xbox trying to finally compete, and now this news comes up, and we just have to want Xbox to get out of the console business. I think it's short sighted, it's lazy, and it's just a cop out, especially with the Game Pass stuff. Logan, I've been talking for 5 minutes straight. Have you got anything else to say on that whole hypocrisy thing?
Just that it's obvious who butters their bread and that
Yeah.
they're just EYAing and you know, Xbox doesn't scare them because for various reasons. Like they don't put the fear of God into them like Sony or Nintendo does. And you know, hopefully, again, I know Xbox leadership is everybody's mad, whatever, but um if they are listening, I hope they really listen and look at what's been going on and seeing who is running away with what coverage and what outlets are writing this and that and the fans that are, ballistic versus rational and stuff. And going forward, tailor and deal with outlets and coverage and codes and products and events and other things on a much more curated black book type thing like Sony and Nintendo do it. Because honestly, is it the most polite, nice thing in the world? Probably not. But you know what? They get results. And you want some results and you want better coverage and better feedback and other stuff, you need to adjust your approach. Like making exclusives again, great start. This is still the 25th anniversary. This is a long year ahead. The year's not over. You can still salvage this and make it a good, happy year. You had a great E3 equivalent. This news really sucks, but really go guns blazing for the 25th anniversary date and other events. And people will move on from this. They always do. People always rant and rave and get frothing mad, bloodshot eyes, and like curdling, blood curdling screams going on about this stuff every time it happens. The hate cycle will eventually fail out and they will move on. Just bide your time and go forth and deliver the goods for the people who've been with the brand. Because the true people who've been with the brand, they're paying attention. They're watching what you guys do very carefully. And so just go forth and deliver on that, and everything will be golden. Just tune out the knuckleheads. I know they're loud. I know they're super annoying. And I know they're super in the face right now. But just relax, take a deep breath, and go forth and deliver on the goods and what you say you're going to do. Actually do it, and things will be great.
Yeah, and there's also people in the gaming space that there's people in the game industry that work at studios that I won't mention that they've told me things, but Microsoft is kind of really different because they have a few people that do talk to other people, and Xbox needs to get a handle on the leak situation. They're getting too many leaks. There's so many mixed messages going on because remember, every single time Microsoft has had to say over the past 2 years that they're making a next gen console, it's all spouted from people saying online, "Hey, I've heard this. Xbox is shutting down. Blah blah blah," and they've had to come out and confirm that they're making a new, console. Right? Xbox. There's people clearly working at Xbox on some level that are just putting out these rumors or giving people information. They need to crack. You don't hear this stuff about Nintendo, right? Xbox needs to crack down on all this stuff, right?
Yeah, who has Jason Schreier and Kotaku and all these other outlets on speed dial? Because somebody has at Xbox for a while, and you would have thought they would have figured that out by now.
Yeah, they need to crack down on the leaks. PlayStation has some, Nintendo has next to zero. I think a couple of their games have leaked, but you don't hear about like industry stuff when it comes to leaks. But I think oh god, I see Nick in chat finished 26 games this year already. I think I'm at 13. Do you know what you're at, Logan?
I honestly have no idea. This year's been kind of a blur, to be honest.
Yeah. But yeah, 26, that's a lot. But my ideal number I'm trying to get to this year is 40 finished games. Probably not going to happen. It doesn't help that Crimson Desert and Rebirth is taking up all my time. But yeah, the game industry stuff, Microsoft needs to crack. Look, Microsoft just needs to crack down on the leaks. You know, the fact that unfortunately, they have to reply to people that believe people on forums. Like, NeoGAF and Reset Error should never be taken as sources, right? They just shouldn't. You know, Xbox doing its reset, they clearly going to have to, you know, do something with some smaller studios. I wish that wasn't the case. And when, you know, Asher Sharma said things were going to have to change, I think people should have really realized, like, some studios are going to get shut down. I don't want it to happen, but, like, things need to change because over the past, 5 years or so, we've seen Xbox buy studios over and over and over again, and they've had basically full creative freedom. There's been a lot of money spent on these games, and the games just haven't done well. Not just, you know, sales-wise, but people just playing them in Game Pass. No one.
They've been too hands off too. Like,
Yeah.
not every studio needs a tight leash, but there are definitely some teams and some studios that need a observant, firm hand in house.
Yeah.
Just like Bungie. Bungie was at their best when they had Microsoft looking over their shoulder. Since they left, they've been,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, like for me, for instance, right, I'll use, let's see, Double Fine as an example, right? You know, Psychonauts 2, smash hit, people loved it. Did well commercially and critically. Like, if I was Microsoft, and I'm surprised Double Fine didn't do this to begin with, like, if you have this surefire hit, make a sequel, right? And they didn't get to work on Psychonauts 3. I just don't know what they were thinking. But yeah, we'll make a game about a lighthouse and a pottery combat game. Like, and I have no problem with those smaller games, but like, why haven't you gotten any work done on Psychonauts 3? You have Obsidian. Why not get them to work with Bethesda on a Fallout game? Like, it's just weird. And you have Rare, and I think Rare's a weird exception because they used to be known to make platformers and, you know, first-person shooters such as, you know, the Bond game, GoldenEye, right? Sea of Thieves has printed money. Like, Sea of Thieves is a huge success. I don't know what it's been like over the past year or two because there's been less big expansions, but like Sea of Thieves is it's a big game, a big ongoing game. But we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm by the way, in the past hour or so when I've checked online, there's people just blaming Game Pass for what's happening. Like,
Uneducated.
yeah, it's uneducated. It's a cop out, right? And I'm not directing this at any one particular individual, but it's just a broad thing. Like, we can't just blame Game Pass because Xbox is having problems, because PlayStation's having problems. They, you know, they had this huge focus on live service games. They shut down, what was that game called? Concord, right? They shut down Concord like 2 weeks after it came out. The game cost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Gears, right? People want to use the $400 million thing. Gears, that's going to come out. It's going to have a lot of players in Game Pass alone. People are going to buy it, right? The collector's edition, by the way, is already sold out. I'd be shocked if they don't do a custom console of some kind. But, like, that game has multiplayer. People are going to play that and buy the microtransactions. They're probably going to buy the silver or cogs or whatever their version of coins are, right? That's going to sell well. They're probably going to have some microtransaction that's tied into Horde mode as well. So, like, that has different avenues to make money, which people aren't talking about, but we just have to talk about scary Game Pass, right? It's honestly, I think I'm actually getting a headache because of it. Nobody's talking about the real problems. It's microtransactions, it's the free-to-play stuff, it's the black hole games, it's the fact that games cost way too much, we're not seeing sequels. And by the way, there was a survey that went out a couple of months ago as to why Japanese gamers are preferring to play things like Pokemon over games like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. Do you know what they were saying? Right? The answer to the problem. The reason why Japanese gamers prefer playing Pokemon over Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy is because the games come out more often.
It works.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, you get your yearly fix of Pikachu, I choose you. I mean, you know what to expect. And hey, it works. I love Pokemon. I get it.
yeah. And, Final Fantasy, I'm clearly a fan, clearly. But, like, I bet Square Enix saw the results of that questionnaire or whatever they did. Um, and I bet that's opened up their eyes, right? You're getting Final Fantasy VII remake trilogy within 7 years, right? They have smaller games in the works. They have that 2D HD game coming out later this year, which looks fantastic. They had the Pixel remasters, which came out like a year ago or whatever, right? They are trying to get Final Fantasy games out more often, right? And you're going to see Xbox try and get more big games out more often. So, in my opinion, you're going to see reused features, reused, assets and stuff, and it's going to work out great for them. But yeah, the industry needs to change. It really does. And like, just because Gears is in Game Pass doesn't mean it's not going to do well. Forza Horizon was number one on the Xbox store. The expensive version, the £90 version, right? And I think in dollars that's $112. Like, that was number one on the store, right? So if you get a bunch of different Xbox studios, such as Obsidian on New Vegas 2, or they could make just a new region, I can't think of anywhere else that would be really cool for Fallout. I think Manhattan would be the best ideal place for me personally.
Seattle or Pacific Northwest would be interesting, or
Yeah,
like deep south, like Louisiana or Texas. I could totally see a cowboy kind of Fallout vibe would be interesting.
yeah. But like, they need to get these studios on games that'll come out more regularly because look, the smaller centric games they're done. The AA centric games we'll see from AA publishers and AA developers. But they need to get AAA games out more often, like across the board. Hopefully, we'll have some of these studios that actually pay attention to this advice because, unfortunately, I honestly think I could actually run some of these studios better. Right, making games nobody wants. Right, look at Stargate. I'll use this as my last example before we close out the show. Stargate was an amazing movie. It got a great TV show, SG-1. It had 10 seasons. It's the longest running sci-fi show, individual sci-fi show of all time, right? It had 2 spin-offs, right? One that had 5 seasons. One had 2. There's been 3 movies total, right? And people since 2010 have been wanting a brand new Stargate show. MGM was bought by Amazon, and they've been saying that they want to do something with Stargate. And what happened last year? They finally got the writers together. They had people that worked on SG-1 and Atlantis to make a brand new show aimed at fans, right? It went viral. It popped off. Everyone was so happy, including myself. And then a couple of weeks ago, it came out that Amazon has cancelled the show because they thought the show only catering to fans wouldn't work.
Modern audiences,
Yeah.
baby.
So now they plan on making a Stargate show that's aimed at the broad spectrum of everyone, right? So we see this in gaming a lot now, where you have things that have built-in fan bases, but these developers, publishers, writers, or whatever, they're making games at fan bases that don't exist. We're seeing too many games that are trying to cater to people that don't play games, right? The fact that there's people, and I'll use BioWare for instance. Like, BioWare makes, in my opinion, some of the best games of all time, and yes, I'm biased, but like the fact that they made a multiplayer game aimed at the Destiny crowd, like, I'll never get over that.
Asinine.
Yeah, and Logan bought as well, Anthem, right? But the
Yep,
fact that,
Legion of Dawn edition.
yeah, like the fact that they had an RPG developer make a game like that, to make it a game for the wrong audience, and we see this across the board. But But yeah, next time you see someone on Twitter, on YouTube, say it's Game Pass, just remind them they are crazy. And I mean that in the most polite way possible. Again, Game Pass is the cop out, and people just like to run with it. And look, I want Xbox, PlayStation to pull through all this, because in that way we all win, right? But unfortunately, some people just want Xbox out of the game because it's clickbait. It makes them money. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
Just RELAX. Just chill, people. It's gonna be fun. It will be okay. It gets dark before dawn. I know it looks like the abyss right now, but things are gonna work out. They had to do some bloodletting. They had to do some studio cuts. Nobody wants it, but it's a business, and in order to save the greater business as a whole, some sacrifices were needed, and that's just the cold-hearted reality of it. And it sucks, but it's the way it is. Just, take a deep breath, relax, go touch some grass, go enjoy some other hobbies for a little bit, come back later in the year. Everybody's going to be really happy. There's going to be some good announcements, and this will just be, a bad time.
Yeah. And I have seen in chat a couple of times today and elsewhere that major AAA first party games shouldn't be in Game Pass. Game Pass funds that stuff, right? Like Netflix puts out multiple films a year that cost several, like that what was that robot film that came out last year with Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown? The Electric State, right?
Yeah.
That film cost over $300 million, and it was a Netflix, right? I think it did have a brief run in some cinemas just so they could be, eligible to get Oscars, which it didn't win any. But like that was a major, expensive Hollywood film that was in Netflix. Game Pass, as a product, as a service, pays for that stuff, right? And taking out AAA games wouldn't really make much sense for the business aspect of it. Because look, Game Pass games still sell, right? Like I just said with Forza Horizon 6 was a very expensive game to make, but it was number one on the store in the UK. I think it was actually number one on the store in the US. People bought that game. By the way, that game physically did really well in the UK. We have next to no physical sales at all in general in the UK. Physical media died in 2012, or at least started to. It's like, yes, AAA games should be in Game Pass and can be. They're funded by Game Pass, like I've just been talking about before. But anyway, Logan, it's been great talking with you once again, and we'll be back for a new episode of All Things Xbox podcast next week, same time on Tuesday. I'm trying to get a video out by then, so if you enjoy my content, the support is greatly appreciated. Liking this channel, liking these podcasts, it helps with the algorithm. So if you can like this podcast, it really helps the channel grow. I've got a lot of cool things planned in the future. Anyway, I hope everyone has a great week, everybody. We are out.